What is your view of the issue of race in Hollywood?
I don't think there is an issue of race in Hollywood.
His voice is one of the most trusted in the world. For decades, Morgan Freeman has been a figure of wisdom, authority, and comfort on screen. But behind that calm voice is a man with a truly shocking view on one of America's most painful subjects. A view that has left people stunned and confused for years. How could a man who saw the worst of racism with his own eyes come to believe the only way to end it is to simply stop talking about it? The statement that shocked everyone.
Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it.
The moment that would define Morgan Freeman's public thoughts on race happened in 2005. He sat across from legendary newsman Mike Wallace for an interview on the show 60 Minutes. Wallace asked him what he thought about Black History Month. Freeman did not hesitate. He called the entire idea ridiculous. Wallace, looking surprised, asked him why. Freeman's answer was simple and sharp. "You're going to relegate my history to a month?" he asked. He then turned the question back on Wallace. "What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month?" When Wallace, who was Jewish, said there was no Jewish History Month and that he did not want one, Freeman agreed. He said, "I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history." But it was his next statement that truly sent shockwaves. Wallace asked him, "How are we going to get rid of racism?" Freeman leaned forward and gave a two-word answer that would be debated for decades to come. "Stop talking about it," he said. He explained further, "I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman." The idea was so simple, it was stunning. To many, it sounded like he was telling people to just ignore a problem that affects millions. The interview clip went viral and has been shared countless times since. It became the central piece of evidence for what people believe Morgan Freeman thinks about race. But it also created a deep mystery. How did a man who grew up in the segregated South, who faced racism head-on, arrive at this conclusion? To understand his words, you have to understand the world that made him. Hollywood's only color is green.
And of course, Hollywood is colorblind. It only sees green.
When an interviewer asked him if he ever faced discrimination in his career or if it still happens today, his answer was just as direct as his words to Mike Wallace. "I don't think there is an issue of race in Hollywood," he stated. He believes the problem was largely solved decades ago. He said that somewhere back in the 70s, a decision was made to start open casting. This meant that roles were open to actors of any race unless the part specifically required a certain ethnicity. According to Freeman, this changed everything. He pointed to television as proof, where you can now see a wide range of people from different backgrounds. His core belief about the movie business is very clear. Hollywood is colorblind. It only sees green, he has said many times. He believes the industry has only one real duty, and that is to stay in business, whatever that takes. If a movie makes money, it's a good thing. Because of this focus on money, he says the walls of discrimination came tumbling down. He doesn't think Hollywood gets on a social high horse to try and change society. They make movies to make money, to make more movies. That is the bottom line. This view is shaped by what he has seen over his long career. He has acknowledged that things were very different when he was starting out. "When I was growing up, there was no me in the movies," he explained. "If there was a black man in a movie, he was funny." Until Sidney Poitier came and gave young people like me the idea that, okay, yes, I can do that. Now he sees huge progress. He says the change is that all people are involved now. Everyone, LGBTQ, Asians, black, white, interracial marriages, interracial relationships, all represented. You see them all on screen now, and that is a huge jump. But before Morgan Freeman saw the world in shades of green, He grew up in a place that only saw black and white, a world that was only black and white.
The greatest thing you can have in this world, I think, in this world we live in, is a good teacher that you can look back on.
Morgan Freeman was born in Memphis, Tennessee on June 1st, 1937. He entered a world described as being in the thick mud of segregation just 2 years before the start of World War II. Like many black families at the time, his parents moved north to Chicago to find work, which was part of the Great Migration. But they left young Morgan behind in Mississippi, in the care of his grandmother. He spent his earliest years in towns like Charleston and Greenwood, Mississippi, deep in the Jim Crow South. This was a time and place where laws and social rules strictly separated black and white people. When his grandmother died when he was 6, he moved to join his mother in Chicago. But this was not the escape one might imagine. He later said the move to Chicago's notorious South Side was not an improvement. "I hated it," he told the New York Times. Gangs were fighting with knives, ice picks, and bats. I ran to school and ran home every day. In both of these harsh worlds, the rural segregated South and the violent urban North, school was his salvation, and movies were his escape. He loved watching films and would scrape together 12 cents to go to the theater whenever he could. He admired actors like Gary Cooper and Spencer Tracy, but as he looked at the screen, he never saw anyone who looked like him. His own acting career began by accident. When he was in junior high school, he had a crush on a girl named Barbara. To get her attention, he pulled her chair out from under her. As punishment, his teacher forced him to participate in the school's drama competition. It turned out to be the best punishment he ever received. He was a natural. He won the competition, and at just 12 years old, he won a statewide drama competition in Mississippi. For a young black boy to win such an award in Mississippi in the early 1950s was an incredible achievement. The schools were segregated, so he was competing in his own system, but it showed his talent was undeniable from a very young age. A dream grounded by racism.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
Today?
or cannot? Yeah.
No,
You don't?
no, I don't. I don't.
His talent on stage was clear, but acting wasn't his first dream. He wanted to fly. The war movies he watched as a child inspired him to become a fighter pilot. He wanted to be a warrior, he said, because it was glamorous. This dream was so powerful that when he graduated from high school in 1955, he turned down a partial drama scholarship from Jackson State University. Instead, he enlisted in the United States Air Force, hoping to finally get into the sky. He went into the military with high hopes, but the reality was a harsh lesson in the limits placed on black men at the time. He took tests that showed he could be a pilot, but that didn't matter. Instead of being trained to fly jets, he was assigned duties as a mechanic and a radar technician, jobs that kept him firmly on the ground. Years later, he would explain exactly why his dream was never allowed to take off. He used a simple, powerful phrase. "I was aced out," he said in an interview with Esquire magazine. He then listed the reasons. Racism, the Southern Old Boy Network. He described being insolent and calling a horse's ass, even if it was wearing brass. He said in the service, "You're supposed to look down." He added, "I never could do that." This experience was a turning point. He realized that the military was not like the movies. The dream he had chased was a fantasy, at least for him. It was a direct personal encounter with a system that judged him not on his ability, but on the color of his skin. This moment of disillusionment closed the door on one dream, but pushed him back toward another. He left the Air Force and decided to pursue acting, a world where he hoped talent might matter more than race. The fight for a place on stage.
The posturing of crazy
Posturing? How the hell can you talk about posturing, lot, when you're all the time bent over kissing posterior down at the school board?
With his dream of flying gone, Freeman turned back to the one thing that had always worked for him, acting. But the path to stardom was long and filled with its own kind of turbulence. After leaving the Air Force in 1959, he moved to Los Angeles and took acting classes. He worked as a transcript clerk at Los Angeles City College to get by. He then moved to New York City in the early 1960s, hoping to find more opportunities on the stage, but he struggled to even get backstage at the theaters. His first big break in New York theater came in 1967. It was an off-Broadway play with a title designed to shock and confront the audience. The play was called The Nigger Lovers. It was about the freedom riders of the civil rights era, brave activists who rode buses into the segregated South to challenge Jim Crow laws. For Freeman, this was not just a role. It was a professional debut in a piece of art that was directly engaged in the racial politics of the time. The following year, he appeared on Broadway in an all-black production of the musical Hello, Dolly, starring the legendary Pearl Bailey. These early roles showed that his entry into the acting world was not colorblind. It was deeply tied to his racial identity, either through plays about the civil rights struggle or in productions that featured segregated casts. His first taste of national fame came in 1971 when he was cast in the children's television show The Electric Company. For 6 years, he played characters like Easy Reader and Count Dracula, teaching a generation of kids how to read. The show gave him financial stability and made him a familiar face in homes across America. But behind the scenes, he was miserable. The show's producer, Joan Gans Cooney, later said that Freeman loathed appearing in The Electric Company. She called it a very unhappy period in his life. He was a serious actor, trained for the stage, and he felt stuck in a children's program. Even as he was becoming famous, he felt creatively unfulfilled and trapped. It was another long struggle, a fight to be seen as more than just a character on a kids' show and to get the serious roles he craved. The year that defined a career, 1989.
We are in a state of emergency, and my word is law. There's only one boss in this place, and that's me.
For years, he was a working actor, but not yet a major star. Then came 1989, a year that would present him with two very different roles and two very different ideas of what it meant to be a black man in America. In a single year, he starred in both Driving Miss Daisy and Glory. First came Driving Miss Daisy. Freeman played Hoke Colburn, a kind and patient black chauffeur hired to drive an elderly, wealthy white Jewish woman in the South. The film was a huge success, winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. But it was also very controversial. Some critics found the character of Hoke to be too passive and obedient. One writer described his manner as toadying and painful to see. The film was seen by some as a comforting story for white audiences that didn't challenge the racial power dynamics of the time. Freeman himself had concerns about the role at first. When he was performing the part in the original stage play, he noticed that white audiences would flock backstage in tears, telling him how the story reminded them of their own families and their relationships with their black servants. He began to worry. He asked himself, "Am I evoking nostalgia?" He worried the play made people nostalgic for a time when everybody was sure who they were and what their place was in life. He even consulted his black friends, who reassured him the character was great, which eased his concerns at the time. Years later, he would call the role a big mistake, saying it typecast him as the wise, old, dignified black man that audiences would expect him to be forever. More recently, however, he has defended the film, calling it a love story and dismissing the controversy as ridiculous. In that very same year, he appeared in a completely different kind of film about race and history. That film was Glory. It told the true story of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, one of the first all-black units to fight in the Civil War. Freeman played Sergeant Major John Rawlins, a gravedigger who rises to become a leader and the conscience of the regiment. The film was powerful and groundbreaking. It was the first major Hollywood movie to tell the story of the nearly 200,000 black soldiers who fought for their own freedom. Freeman said it was important that the movie did not become just another white hero story. He stated, "This is a picture about the 54th Regiment, not Colonel Shaw, but at the same time, the two are inseparable." The release of these two films in the same year was a turning point. The Irishman Who Broke the Mold.
They say one bad apple spoils the bunch.
He had played a servant and a soldier. Both roles were defined by their relationship to America's racial history. But his next major role would be something else entirely, a character that on paper he should never have been able to play at all. The film was The Shawshank Redemption. The movie was based on a story by Stephen King. In the book, the character of Ellis Redding, known as Red, is described as a white, red-headed Irishman. When the book was first sent to Morgan Freeman, he read the first page, saw the description, and immediately closed it. I can't play an Irishman, he thought. It seemed like an impossible role for him to even consider. But the film's director, Frank Darabont, had his heart set on Freeman for the part. The producer, Liz Glotzer, also suggested him, and they decided to ignore the character's race as it was written in the book. They simply wanted the best actor for the role. When Freeman was cast, it was a quiet but revolutionary act of colorblind casting. The movie even makes a small joke about this change. In one scene, the main character, Andy Dufresne, asks Red why people call him that. Red, played by Freeman, just smiles and says, "Maybe it's because I'm Irish." It was a clever nod to the original story and a wink to the audience about the casting choice. The Shawshank Redemption went on to become one of the most beloved films of all time. Freeman's performance as Red is considered iconic, and his narration is legendary. For Freeman, this experience may have been the ultimate proof of his developing philosophy. It showed what could happen when you stopped focusing on race and just focused on talent. He was cast in a role not written for a black man, and the result was cinematic history. This powerful personal success story likely became the foundation for the strong public opinions he would share for years to come. The Freeman Doctrine.
A teenager who says no to drugs and yes to an education. That's a miracle.
The success of Shawshank seemed to prove what Morgan Freeman had come to believe. That talent was all that mattered. Over the next few decades, he would share this belief with the world, creating what some now call the Freeman Doctrine. It is a set of ideas about race that he has repeated consistently in interviews for nearly 20 years. First, there is his view on Black History Month. He has called it an insult multiple times. His reasoning is always the same. "You're going to relegate my history to a month?" he asks. He believes that Black history is not separate from American history, but a core part of it. "My history is American history," he says. "It's the one thing in this world I am interested in, beyond making money, having a good time, and getting enough sleep." Second, he objects to the term African American. He calls this an insult as well. "I don't subscribe to that title," he stated in an interview with the Sunday Times. "Black people have had different titles all the way back to the N-word, and I do not know how these things get such a grip, but everyone uses African American." He questions what the term even means, pointing out that Africa is a huge continent, not a single country like Ireland or Italy. He says people don't say Euro-American. He also argues that most black people in this part of the world are mongrels, meaning they have mixed ancestry from many places. He agrees with a statement made by fellow actor Denzel Washington, "I'm very proud to be black, but black is not all I am." Freeman added, "You can't define me that way." Third, and most controversially, is his belief about race and success. In an interview with CNN's Don Lemon, he was asked if race plays a part in the distribution of wealth in America today. His answer was a blunt no. He pointed to himself and Lemon, two successful black men, and said, "You and I, we're proof." He went on to say, "Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that." It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there. All of these ideas lead back to his simple solution to racism, the one he first shared with Mike Wallace all those years ago. Stop talking about it. It was a simple, powerful idea. Stop talking about race, and racism will go away. But what would the man who said this do when he returned home and found segregation alive and well? The homecoming.
Go on, what's the secret?
Don't chase women.
Really?
They'll chase you.
For a man who says we should stop talking about race, Morgan Freeman once took a very loud and very public action against it. The story takes place in his old hometown of Charleston, Mississippi, the same town where he grew up surrounded by the rules of Jim Crow. When he moved back to Mississippi as a successful movie star, he was shocked to discover something about the local high school. Decades after schools were legally integrated, Charleston High School still held two separate senior proms, one for white students and one for black students. In 1997, Freeman made an offer. He told the school board he would pay for the entire senior prom himself. But there was one condition. The prom had to be for everyone, black and white students together. The school board ignored his offer. For over 10 years, nothing changed. Then, in 2008, a Canadian filmmaker named Paul Saltzman was making a documentary about race in Mississippi. He learned about Freeman's offer and asked him if he would be willing to try again. Freeman said yes. This time, with cameras rolling, the school board accepted his offer. For the first time in the history of Charleston, Mississippi, there was going to be one single, integrated prom. The decision caused an uproar in the town. While the students were excited, many of their parents were not. Some white parents held secret meetings and organized their own private, white-only prom in protest. They forbade their children from attending the integrated event that Freeman was paying for. One white student in the documentary had to have his face blurred because he was afraid his racist parents would disown him for supporting the integrated prom. This story seems to contradict his famous advice. He didn't stop talking about it. He forced the entire town to talk about it. But a closer look shows that this might be the clearest example of his philosophy in action. He didn't just complain about the problem or give interviews about it. He used his own money and influence to take direct personal action. He created a solution himself. He didn't just talk, he did something. This suggests his message isn't to simply ignore racism, but to stop making it an excuse and instead take personal responsibility to fix the problems you see in front of you. From the segregated fields of Mississippi to the biggest movie sets in Hollywood, Morgan Freeman's life has been a long, complicated conversation about race. He is a man whose own dream was stopped by racism, yet he believes race is an excuse. He is an actor who broke barriers by playing a role written for a white man, solidifying his belief in a colorblind world. Whether one agrees with him or not, his story forces us to ask difficult questions about how we see race, how we talk about it, and what the final goal should be. Is it to celebrate our differences, or is it to one day, as he hopes, not see them at all?